You may be seated. Jesus says, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." In January of this year, if you happen to be driving on Interstate 205 in Portland, Oregon, you saw an unusual billboard next to the highway. The billboard had in large white letters on a black background the message, "Stop having kids." Another billboard next to Interstate 5 near Salem, Oregon, had this message: "A lot of humans wish they hadn't been born." Now, these billboards were not jokes. They were the very real and earnest efforts of a very real and earnest organization called Stop Having Kids. Its mission is to promote anti-natalism, the idea that all humans should stop all human reproduction. From their mission statement, quote, "There is an unconscionable amount of needless suffering, injustice, and death in the world, and birth serves as a catalyst for it all. Therefore, it is a moral imperative that we strive to prevent as many new lives as possible." Now, on first glance, it seems like Jesus could support such an idea like this. In today's gospel, he tells his disciples that they must hate those closest to them, their parents, their spouses, their children, even life itself, in order to follow him. And what better way to express this hate than by opting out of family life altogether? Now, of course, there is a long tradition in our faith of honoring those whom God has called to the single life. The Apostle Paul never married. And famously, he once wrote that he wished everybody could be content to be single, like he was. And there is a long and honorable history of consecrated Christians who make public vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. And they include some in Chemin Neuf, our new partner in ministry here at the Cathedral. So what might Jesus think about stop having kids? Throughout his ministry, we know that Jesus continually challenges and redefines what it means to belong to his family. A few chapters before today's reading, in Luke chapter 8, we see that there is a large crowd around Jesus, so large that his mother and his brothers can't reach him. And someone says to Jesus, "Your mother and your brothers are trying to talk to you." And he says, "My mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God and do it." In other words, being related to me isn't good enough. And right before today's gospel reading, earlier in Luke chapter 14, Jesus tells a parable about a banquet in which he urges his disciples not to invite their brothers and sisters. Instead, they are to invite to the festive meal the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. So in today's gospel, when Jesus tells his disciples they must hate their families, we understand that Jesus is not talking about an emotional reaction. He is talking about reordering priorities. He is saying that compared to the sacrifice required to follow him, everything else in our lives, even our families, must be second. That is what it means to put Jesus first. But putting Jesus first does not mean everything will be okay. Jesus says that being his follower means we must be ready to carry a cross. And it is for this reason, I think, that Jesus would not support this organization, Stop Having Kids. That organization believes that the unconscionable amount of needless suffering, injustice, and death can be avoided if people weren't born at all. And I suppose that might be true in some kind of abstract, theoretical sense. Without any people, people couldn't suffer. But what Jesus promises to those who choose to follow him is not a life without needless suffering, injustice, or death. He promises a cross. One reason I'm not bothered by the shrinking number of professing Christians in our country is that if you take seriously this commitment that Jesus demands of all of us who want to follow him, of course being a Christian will never be popular. Carrying a cross sounds like a deeply unpleasant task, because it is. It's not supposed to be easy. And I think that is why whenever we see people live out an authentic Christian life, we are intrigued. Because watching people do something difficult is always compelling. And as the Roman Empire was coming apart in the late 4th century, and the empire's official religion of Christianity was becoming lukewarm and complacent, the seeds of renewal at that time were being planted in the deserts of Egypt. There, small bands of faithful Christians tried fervently to live up to the high ideals that Jesus sets out for his disciples in today's gospel reading. And now, as we live through the beginning of the end of the American Empire and the disappearance of nominal and lukewarm Christianity from the public square, perhaps the seeds of renewal will be found in places like the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, where next fall, 12 young people will come to live here according to the high ideals Jesus sets out for his disciples. These 12 young people from different Christian traditions, Roman Catholic, Anglican, Orthodox, Protestant, will spend 1 year putting everything second: their own families, their own comforts, their own needs, in order to make Jesus their number one priority. These 12 talented young people, who could be doing anything else with their lives, instead choosing to spend 1 year living a life of sacrifice, disciplined prayer, and service to the community. What a profound witness to the faith, and what a hopeful encouragement to our own.